People say dogs can smell fear. But Bravo didn't bark out of fear, he barked because he knew something was buried. Something no one else could sense. Not yet. And when a K9 barks like that, you listen. Or you miss what matters most. Officer Braxton Hayes had driven this same dusty road for 7 years, past the same dried cornfields, same rusted barns, same church steeple piercing the sky. Hollow Creek, Nebraska, wasn't the kind of town where kids vanished. Not until Madison Hale and Sophie Carter did. And now, 10 days later, Bravo, the department's most trusted German shepherd, was losing his mind in the back of Braxton's cruiser. Ears pinned. Teeth bared. Pawing the door like the world was on fire. Braxton pulled over fast, heart thudding. "What is it, boy?" He opened the back door, and Bravo leapt out like a bullet. Nose to the ground, tail straight, focused like he was trained to be. The air was crisp, heavy with the smell of rain and dirt. Corn stalks rustled behind them like ghosts whispering secrets. Braxton followed the dog off the side of the road, boots sinking into the soft soil, his hand instinctively resting on the holster at his hip. 30 yards in, Bravo stopped cold. Then he growled. Not a playful growl. Not curious. This was something darker, raw and protective. Braxton knelt beside him. "What do you got?" Bravo scratched once, twice, then froze, eyes locked on a patch of earth beneath a crumbling tree stump. Braxton started to dig, fingers brushing aside wet leaves and thin roots until he hit paper. A half-burned notebook page. Edges scorched, center mostly intact. Braxton turned it over, revealing smeared handwriting in 2 colors, pink and blue ink. M+S final plan. Friday night. He said it's safe. He stared at it, blinking. His gut twisted. They didn't just vanish. They were planning something. And someone had helped them. Back at the station, Braxton sat in the dim light of his office, the note laid out like evidence in a courtroom. His fingers hovered above it like it might vanish if he touched it too long. The sheriff had closed the case after 3 days. Called it a runaway. Girls chasing the dream, he'd said. Probably in Denver by now. But the note in Braxton's hand, and the instincts of his K9, told a different story. He pulled up their file again. Madison was the bright one, varsity debate, always talking about college. Sophie was the quiet shadow behind her, loyal to a fault. Both were good kids. No history of trouble, no signs of planning to disappear. No calls. No texts. No bank activity. And yet, there it was. A plan. A man. A promise. Bravo shifted at his feet, letting out a soft, almost impatient sigh. He wasn't done. Not by a long shot. By late afternoon, Braxton was back on the street where the girls were last seen, Miller Avenue, the heart of downtown Hollow Creek. He'd walked it 100 times since they vanished. Still, he let Bravo take the lead. And Bravo pulled him straight to the town's old bus stop. "Find anything, partner?" The dog sniffed around the corners of the cracked concrete shelter, circling the back side of an old vending machine bolted against the brick. Suddenly he stopped, then jammed his nose under the metal base. He pawed furiously at something wedged beneath. Braxton reached in and tugged it free, a crumpled, half-wet bus ticket stub. The ink was faded, but not enough to hide the words. Chicago. One way. October 4th. Dated the day after the girls went missing. His pulse quickened. He flipped it over, no name. But that didn't matter. Bravo had just proven they didn't run. They moved, with purpose. And they had help. Back at the station, Braxton dove into traffic cam footage. The only angle near the bus stop came from a bank security feed across the street. Most of it was useless. Grainy. Low-res. Until one frame stood out. A white pickup. Parked on the opposite curb. Older model. Possibly a 2002 Ford F-150. It sat there for nearly 45 minutes before the timestamp cut to 2:57 p.m., and two figures entered frame. Madison. Sophie. They didn't hesitate. No backpacks. No struggle. Just walked to the truck. Door opened. Then the footage glitched. But Braxton had seen enough. That night, Bravo wouldn't settle. He paced near the porch steps while Braxton sat, holding the half-burned page in one hand and the ticket stub in the other. He'd been a cop long enough to know what it meant when every official sign said, "No crime," but your gut said otherwise. The next morning, they returned to the field. Bravo didn't head to the same stump. This time, he broke off toward the abandoned McKinley farm on the edge of the woods. Braxton hadn't been there in years. Windows boarded. Paint peeling. Nature reclaiming the place. But Bravo wasn't interested in the house. He was interested in what lay behind it. Near the old shed, Bravo barked once, then began to dig. Within minutes, Braxton uncovered something soft and dirty, a scrap of pink fabric, worn but recognizable. Butterflies. The same pattern Sophie had on her backpack. Sewn inside, faded but visible. S. Carter, 11th grade. Braxton laid everything out on a corkboard that night, note, photo, bus ticket, fabric, and stared at the timeline in front of him. He'd seen cases like this before in training modules, not real life. Girls groomed through trust. Promised something better. Given a date. A place. And then they're gone. But Hollow Creek was supposed to be safe. Nothing like this happened here. Until now. 3 blocks over, at Granger's Market, Braxton ran into Tommy Jensen, a local mechanic who swore he'd seen the girls talking to some out-of-towner a few weeks back. Said he had a job for them. Paid cash. Drove a white truck. Illinois plates. Braxton's chest tightened. Why didn't you say anything? Tommy shrugged. Didn't think it mattered. Braxton walked out without another word. Bravo was already waiting by the cruiser, eyes locked on his. You were right all along, Braxton said quietly. And now we hunt. The morning fog still clung to the ground when Officer Braxton stepped into the station with Bravo padding at his side. The scent of burnt coffee filled the air, same as every morning, but something felt different now. The evidence board in Braxton's office had grown crowded, the burned notebook page, the pink fabric, the bus ticket stub. Together, they painted a story that didn't sit right. The kind of story no one in Hollow Creek wanted to believe. Braxton sipped his coffee and stared at the grainy photo of the white pickup truck paused outside the bus stop. There were no clear plates. No visible driver's face. Just the vague outline of someone sitting behind the wheel as Madison Hale and Sophie Carter climbed in without hesitation. Whatever fear they might have had, if any, was masked by something stronger. Trust. Or worse, hope. He didn't wait for backup. By mid-morning, Braxton and Bravo were back on the road, headed to Lake Haven, a neighboring town 45 miles east. Word around town said a man in a white pickup had been asking about hard-working teenage girls a few weeks back, claiming he ran a small talent agency in Chicago. He left business cards at gas stations and diners, told waitresses he was looking for fresh faces for commercial work. It sounded innocent enough on paper. Until 2 girls vanished. As they pulled into Lake Haven's main street, Braxton's radio crackled with static. He turned it down and parked outside Mel's Diner, a 1950s throwback with red vinyl booths and a long chrome counter. The kind of place where gossip was served hot with the morning pancakes. Bravo leapt out of the cruiser, nose twitching in the cool air. He circled the sidewalk near the front entrance, pausing near a trash bin. Braxton didn't think much of it, until Bravo barked once, short and sharp. Inside the bin, Braxton found a discarded takeout bag dated from October 3rd, with a receipt stapled to it. 3 burgers. 2 milkshakes. 1 unsweetened tea. Paid in cash. He brought the receipt inside and asked the waitress behind the counter, a blonde woman in her 50s named Trudy, if she remembered the order. She squinted at it and nodded slowly. "Oh yeah. I remember him. Big guy. Said he was from Illinois. Was here with 2 teenage girls, one had curly brown hair, real talkative. The other barely said a word. Madison and Sophie." "What did he say his name was?" Braxton asked. Trudy shook her head. "Didn't catch it. But he left this." She reached into the drawer and pulled out a business card. It read, "Mark Templeman, Talent Scout, TMN Entertainment Group. Chicago, Illinois. No website. No email. Just a phone number." Braxton flipped it over. The back was blank, except for a handwritten note in blue ink. "You're a star. Call me." Back in the cruiser, Braxton held the card up to the light. Something about it felt off. Too generic. The number had an Illinois area code, but the format looked cheap. Like something made at a print kiosk in a mall. He dialed it anyway. It rang twice, then went straight to a full voicemail box. "Figures," Braxton muttered. Bravo was pawing at the glove compartment. Braxton opened it, and the dog immediately pushed his nose against the pink backpack scrap found behind the old barn. "You're not letting this go, are you?" Bravo whined softly, tail twitching. That was answer enough. The next stop was Lake Haven Motel, about half a mile from Mel's Diner. A rundown, pay-by-the-hour place with flickering lights and a cracked neon sign that hadn't been fully lit in years. The motel owner, a man named Curtis, was more interested in football on his portable TV than any questions from law enforcement, until Braxton showed him the receipt and the business card. Curtis rubbed his stubbled chin. Yeah. He stayed here. Guy checked in with 2 girls, 1 room. Paid cash. Used the name, Tom Marks, but I don't ask questions." "What room?" Braxton asked. 9. It was vacant now. Room 9 smelled like mildew and stale cigarettes. The bed was unmade. The carpet was torn. The kind of place built for forgetting things, not remembering them. But Bravo remembered. He sniffed once at the threshold. Then again near the window. Then he stopped at the corner of the bed, and barked. Braxton leaned down. Hidden just beneath the mattress was a lip balm tube, half empty, tinted pink. It had Madison's initials scratched into the plastic, MH. And beside the nightstand, almost invisible to the naked eye, was a small smear of glitter on the floor. Braxton sat back on his heels. They had been here. By sundown, Braxton was back in Hollow Creek, pinning new photos to his corkboard. Every piece of evidence confirmed what his gut and Bravo had known from the start: the girls didn't just run. They were groomed. Chosen. And then vanished. He called the number on the card again. Still no answer. Then, he tried something else. He Googled TMN Entertainment Group. Nothing came up. Not one legitimate listing. No reviews. No website. He searched the name Mark Templeman. 1 hit. A local crime blog out of Iowa, dated from 3 years prior. Fake talent scout suspected of recruiting minors under false modeling offers. Alleged to be operating in rural areas targeting small towns. No charges filed. Suspect never identified. Braxton stared at the screen. His jaw tightened. He printed the article and added it to the board. "Now we have a name," he said to Bravo. Bravo let out a quiet woof. That night, Braxton sat on his porch again, watching Bravo sniff around the edge of the yard. The wind had picked up. The stars were out. But the weight in his chest hadn't budged. Somewhere out there, those girls were either trying to get home, or trying to disappear completely. He thought about the look on Trudy's face when she remembered Madison. She looked excited, the waitress had said. Like someone just handed her the future on a napkin. That was the cruelest part. Whoever this man was, he didn't force them. He made them believe. At sunrise the next day, Braxton received a call from Emily Ward, a former classmate of Madison and Sophie. She sounded hesitant. "I don't know if this matters," she said. "But a few days before they vanished. Sophie told me they were going to be famous. Said someone discovered them." "Did she mention his name?" Braxton asked. "No," Emily replied. "Just that he promised them a life bigger than this town. And she said Madison really believed him." Braxton felt a familiar ache. "Did Sophie?" Emily paused. "No." She looked scared. The wind carried a chill that morning, sharp enough to bite through Braxton's collar as he stood in front of St. Luke's Baptist Church, the oldest building in Hollow Creek. The white paint on the steeple was chipping, and the cracked bell overhead hadn't rung in years. Yet Bravo stood at the foot of its wide steps, ears forward, tail rigid. He wasn't looking at the church. He was listening. Something had drawn the K9 here. Not noise. Not scent. Something deeper, instinct. Braxton adjusted the strap on his vest and followed Bravo around the back of the chapel, past a rusted swing set and toward the community garden, now brown and dying beneath the October frost. The morning sun cast long shadows between headstones of the small church cemetery, and for a moment, Braxton thought maybe they were chasing nothing. Until Bravo barked, once, then again, then started digging. Braxton knelt beside him, clearing a patch of dirt with his gloved hands. Just beneath the surface, nestled among crushed leaves and roots, was a duffel bag, old, moldy, zipped shut. He hesitated. Then opened it. Inside were clothes. Teenage clothes. A worn denim jacket. A makeup bag. A half-empty bottle of vanilla body spray. A spiral notebook. And, at the very bottom, a torn photo. Braxton pulled it out gently. It showed Madison and Sophie, arms linked, in front of the Hollow Creek High Gymnasium, both smiling, both dressed for winter formal. The photo had been folded twice. Along the crease was a message written in faint black marker. "Don't look back. We made our choice." He sat back on his heels. It wasn't just that the girls were planning to leave. It was how deliberate it all felt. How carefully they'd hidden it. Back at the station, Braxton spread the contents of the bag across his desk. He flipped open the notebook. The first pages were ordinary, math notes, doodles, to-do lists. But further in, a new tone emerged. Paragraphs scribbled late at night. Some crossed out. Others circled. "He said he can get us out next Friday. No one will believe us anyway. We have to keep saving money. Don't tell anyone. She's nervous again. I'm not. I want this." Each sentence was a breadcrumb. Each word a scream no one had heard. Bravo paced near the window, nose twitching. "Don't worry, boy," Braxton murmured. "We're not letting this go." That afternoon, he paid a visit to Mrs. Beverly Lang, a retired teacher who lived across the street from the school. She was the kind of woman who noticed things, not because she was nosy, but because she genuinely cared. "Oh yes," she said, pouring coffee into a chipped Eagles mug. "Those girls? Sweet as could be. But something changed. Around mid-September, maybe." Braxton leaned forward. "How so?" "They stopped walking home. Started hanging around the school longer. Sometimes near the old well in the courtyard. I saw M talking to a man once. Braxton's heart skipped. What man? She squinted. Tall. Wore a ball cap. Never saw his face clear. But I knew he didn't belong here. She paused, then added, Sophie looked scared. But Madison? She looked excited. Back at the high school, Braxton walked the halls with Principal Jenkins. He asked about the transcript request he found mentioned in the girl's notebook. Oh yeah, Jenkins said, flipping through a cabinet. They both asked for copies of their school records back in early September. Said it was for a scholarship program they saw online. Did any teacher assign that? Jenkins shook his head. Not that I know of. Why? Braxton didn't answer. Instead, he followed Bravo through the school's back corridor toward the old prayer garden behind the gym. Bravo slowed near a cracked stone bench, sniffed, then moved to the wishing well at the center. It hadn't been used in years. Weeds curled around its edge like long-forgotten arms. Bravo sat. Alert. Watching. Braxton stepped closer. Inside the well's dry interior was a torn piece of cloth. He reached in and pulled it out, lace, black, delicate. Not something you'd wear to class. Back at the precinct, Braxton pieced together the week before the girls vanished. Bravo lay nearby, but his gaze never wavered from the duffel bag on the desk. Madison and Sophie had worked odd jobs secretly for months. Saved cash without anyone knowing. Requested transcripts under false pretenses. Hid clothes and personal belongings in a church graveyard. And met with a mysterious man, possibly multiple times. But here was the strangest thing, no digital trace. No texts. No online messages. No receipts. Nothing. It was as if someone coached them on how to vanish. Braxton tapped his pen against the edge of his desk. Someone helped them plan this. And then he thought of Emily Torres, a junior who'd been close with Sophie since grade school. He decided it was time for a visit. Emily's house was small and tidy, her mother warm but worried. She hasn't really talked about it, she whispered to Braxton. She just keeps saying, they're not missing. They left. Emily sat on the edge of the porch, Bravo lying beside her as she stroked his fur. Do you think they're okay? She asked softly. I don't know, Braxton said truthfully. But I think they wanted to be. Did either of them say goodbye? Emily hesitated. Then nodded. Sophie told me, if I ever hear from them, it means they made it. But Madison, she started acting different the last few days. More secretive. And kind of bossy. Braxton leaned in. Did Sophie want to go? Emily looked down. She didn't say no. But, she cried a lot. Bravo nuzzled against her leg. She clutched his fur like a lifeline. I think she was scared, Emily said. But I think she felt trapped. That night, Braxton sat outside the church again, watching the shadows stretch long across the field. The bells hadn't rung in years, but somehow they still echoed. Like ghosts. Bravo laid beside him, breathing slow, steady. Braxton whispered into the wind, they didn't run. They were led. And somewhere out there, the one who led them was still out of reach. But Bravo wasn't done yet. The door to room 9 was warped from years of rain, its paint peeled back like sunburned skin. Braxton had been in dozens of motels like this one, the kind that clung to the edge of towns and time. The Red Pines Motel, just outside Lakeview, Nebraska, wasn't on any map tourists used, but it was exactly the kind of place a predator would choose for a stopover. Bravo was already at the door, nose low, tail still, ears forward. Focused. Braxton knocked. No answer. He had permission from the manager, who barely looked up from his cigarettes and TV when Braxton showed his badge. Room's been empty for a while, the guy muttered. Weird smell lingers in there though. Like perfume and mold. That was enough. The door creaked open with a push. The air inside was thick, stale body spray mixed with something sour. A broken ceiling fan spun half a rotation and clicked to a stop. One bed. Threadbare. Sink cracked. Carpet matted with grime. But Bravo didn't care about the filth. He bolted straight to the corner near the window, nose pressed against the fraying curtain. And then he froze. Braxton watched as the dog stood completely still, tail stiff, nostrils flaring. Something's here. He moved in. Tucked behind the dresser was a torn strip of fabric. Pink. With faded butterflies. Braxton felt a chill crawl up his spine. Same pattern. Same material as the backpack fragment they'd found in Hollow Creek. Next to it, half buried in the carpet fibers, was a broken plastic charm, a letter M, cracked down the center, covered in dust. Bravo sniffed it gently, then whimpered. Outside, the wind whipped across the parking lot, flinging loose wrappers and grit across Braxton's boots. He stood under the gray Nebraska sky, looking out toward the highway that bled into the horizon. Madison and Sophie had been here. There was no more doubt. But where had they gone next? Back in Hollow Creek, Braxton pulled into the high school parking lot just as the last bell rang. He waited by the brick entrance until the students poured out like water through a funnel. Amid the crowd was Emily Torres, a junior who had been in Sophie's literature class and often walked home with both girls. He approached carefully. "Emily? Got a minute?" She nodded, eyes cautious but curious. "Is it about Madison and Sophie?" Braxton nodded. "Anything you remember might help. Even if it seems small." Emily glanced around, then stepped closer. "I didn't say anything before because I didn't think it mattered. But the week before they disappeared, Sophie said something that stuck with me." "What was it?" "She said, if you ever hear from us, it'll mean we made it." Braxton furrowed his brow. "Made it?" She didn't say more. But Madison kept talking about getting out, making a name for herself, starting over. Sophie seemed less sure. She was nervous all the time. Like she was trying to back out. Braxton nodded slowly. "Did they mention anyone new? Anyone from out of town?" Emily hesitated. "There was a guy. Maybe late 20s. He came to the school parking lot a few times. Always in a white pickup. Said he worked for a talent agency in Chicago." Madison believed every word. That night, Braxton pulled every motel registration, bus log, and roadside diner receipt he could find for the 72-hour window following the girl's disappearance. And somewhere between the cluttered files and endless coffee, he found it. October 4th, Lakeview Diner, Table 3. Server's note, man, 2 teens. Girl cried. Paid cash. Left in a hurry. The man's name on the receipt was fake, Jason Reed. But the pattern was starting to form. A white pickup. Promises of fame. Teen girls with dreams and doubts. And then silence. He looked down at Bravo, who was curled under the desk, head resting on crossed paws but eyes wide open. "You ready for one more trip, buddy?" Bravo stood before he finished the sentence. The following morning, Braxton drove 3 hours south to Kansas City, Kansas, following a vague tip left on the anonymous hotline set up after local coverage aired. Someone claimed to have seen a girl matching Sophie Carter's description at a women's shelter, 7 years ago. It was a long shot. But Braxton had learned by now, those were the ones that mattered most. At Horizon Safe Haven, a woman named Monica Green met him at the door. Kind-eyed. Professional. Her voice was calm but cautious. "We've helped a lot of girls over the years, officer." Faces blur. But I remember this one. She brought out an old intake form. No real name, just Emily B. The age, height, and general appearance matched Sophie. But it was what she said that hit hardest. She told us not to contact anyone. Said, he might still be looking for me. Did she mention anyone else? A friend? Monica nodded. She said she had a best friend once. They got separated on the road. She never said how. Braxton exhaled slowly. Before he left, Monica handed him something else, a letter the girl had written but never mailed. It was addressed simply, to Mom. I'm alive. I miss you. I'm sorry. I can't go back. Not now. He's still out there. But I'm okay. Please don't look for me. It's too dangerous. Braxton stared at the words for a long time, memorizing the pain between the lines. He handed it to Bravo. The dog sniffed it gently, then let out a low, almost grieving whine. Sophie had escaped. But Madison hadn't. On the drive home, Braxton couldn't stop thinking about the split. Somewhere along the way, the girls had made a choice, or had one forced on them. One stayed. One ran. Back in Hollow Creek, the sky had darkened by the time he parked outside the station. He sat in silence as Bravo jumped down and walked toward the porch steps. For a moment, Braxton didn't move. He was thinking about the letter. The charm. The motel room. And the silence Madison had left behind. He looked up at the sky. She's still out there, he whispered. Bravo barked once. As if to say, I know. Some clues break cases. Others break your heart. Officer Braxton had seen plenty of both in his career, but none struck him like the one Bravo led him to at the St. Martin's Shelter for Women in Kansas City. It was mid-morning when they arrived, unassuming building, gray stone, small brass bell on the front desk. A place designed to be forgotten. But Bravo wouldn't let it go. He'd picked up a scent at a rest stop outside Wichita, an old, tattered school ID card, faded from sun and weather. Most of the name was missing. But the photo wasn't. It was Sophie Carter, or at least it looked like her, older, thinner, with wear behind the eyes. The shelter director, a soft-spoken woman named Tanya Green, reviewed the photo, then stepped aside without a word and disappeared into the back. She returned a few minutes later with a plain manila envelope and an unreadable look in her eyes. She was here, she said quietly. But only for a few days. Under a false name. Braxton felt his pulse tick upward. She was scared. Really scared. Jumped at every knock. Kept saying she couldn't stay long. Did she say where she came from? He asked. Tanya nodded. She never mentioned Hollow Creek directly. But she left a letter. Never mailed. It's been sitting in our files ever since. She handed it to him, worn, folded a dozen times over, written in blue pen on shelter stationery. Braxton opened it carefully. The handwriting was rushed, slanted, almost like someone writing in the dark. Dear Mom. I'm alive. I miss you every day. I wanted to come back, but I couldn't. He's still looking for me. Please don't try to find me. If you're reading this, I'm sorry. I didn't mean for it to go this far. I just wanted to be someone. Love. Sophie. Braxton stared at the words for a long time. Then he looked down at Bravo, who sat by his foot like always, eyes sharp, nose twitching faintly. The dog let out a soft whine. She's alive, Braxton said quietly. She made it out. On the drive back to Hollow Creek, Braxton couldn't shake the image of Sophie alone, hiding in that shelter. Hair matted, eyes hollow, carrying secrets too heavy for any girl to bear. And he couldn't help but wonder, where was Madison? Bravo, as if sensing the weight of the silence, leaned forward and rested his head gently on Braxton's shoulder from the back seat. It was comfort. And a reminder. There was still more to find. Back at the station, Braxton pieced together a new board. This one was narrower, focused, not on the disappearance, but on Sophie's escape. October 3rd, girls vanish. October 4th, bus ticket found, Chicago. 3 weeks later, motel room confirmed in Indiana under false names. Nearly a year later, sighting in Kansas City shelter. And somewhere between all of it, Madison disappears from the trail. He pulled up every missing persons report from shelters, hospitals, and women's clinics in the tri-state area from 2004 to 2006. Most leads were dead ends. False alarms. Mismatched identities. Until one caught his eye. Jane Doe, 17 to 19 years old, admitted under trauma code, no ID. Released 2 days later. No record of follow-up. The hospital was in Des Moines, Iowa, 6 hours north. Braxton didn't hesitate. By the time they reached Des Moines General, it was after 6 p.m. The sun had dipped behind low clouds, painting the sky in streaks of red and blue. Bravo was alert. Focused. A nurse at the records department pulled up the file Braxton requested. No real name. She wouldn't speak much, the nurse explained. She was dehydrated. Looked like she hadn't slept in days. Said she was trying to get back to her friend. Then she vanished. The only belongings listed? Wristwatch, one small charm necklace, and a folded photograph. Braxton's chest tightened. Do you still have them? The nurse nodded slowly. They've been in storage. No one ever came back for them. In the basement of the hospital, under dusty shelves and faded labels, Braxton held the items in his hands. The watch was cracked but still ticking faintly. The necklace had a tiny butterfly charm. The photo, it was old, but the faces were clear. Madison and Sophie. Sitting on the hood of a truck. Laughing. Happy. Later that night, Braxton sat on the motel bed with the photo in hand. Bravo lay beside him, head on his paws. The TV flickered in the background but neither of them was paying attention. He turned the photo over. On the back, in the same handwriting from the shelter letter. We were supposed to be safe. But he lied. We didn't know how to get out. We just ran. That sentence stuck to Braxton's ribs like frostbite. The next morning, Braxton made one more stop, Centerpoint Rest Area, just off the highway. According to a trucker report in 2005, 2 young women had approached his rig asking for directions to the safe house. They never gave names. Just said they were getting away. The trucker had forgotten the moment, until he saw Bravo's photo poster campaign posted on a Facebook missing persons page. They had Midwest accents. Looked tired. One had a limp. A limp. In Madison's childhood records, Braxton remembered she had torn her ACL in 10th grade. Recovered, but never walked quite the same again. Now he was certain, both girls had escaped. At some point, together. But something, or someone, had separated them again. Back in Hollow Creek, Braxton sat in the squad room with a full board now, dates, locations, breadcrumbs strung together by red string and determination. And a dog who wouldn't quit. Sheriff Millen stepped into the room, arms crossed. You really think this isn't just a runaway story? Braxton turned to face him. I don't think they ran away, he said. I think they ran for their lives. Millen was silent. Then, for the first time in weeks, he nodded. You want more resources? No, Braxton said, glancing at Bravo. I've got what I need. That night, Braxton got a call from a number he didn't recognize. He answered, heart pounding. Silence. Then a female voice, barely above a whisper. Is this Officer Braxton? Yes. A pause. You don't know me. But I was with Sophie once. And I think I saw Madison, years later. In Arizona. Then she hung up. Braxton stared at the phone. Bravo lifted his head slowly. It wasn't over. Not even close. Fall came early to Hollow Creek that year. The breeze carried the crisp scent of dry leaves and wood smoke, and the town's cornfields were already golden and brittle, ready for harvest. Most people were thinking about Halloween costumes or high school football. But Officer Braxton Hayes hadn't stopped thinking about Madison Hale and Sophie Carter, two names that still haunted the back of his mind like unfinished sentences. It had been months since the last lead. Chicago, Kansas City, the women's shelter, the anonymous letter, each clue led them 1 inch closer and then slammed shut like a locked door. The department had shifted focus, the sheriff had quietly declared the case archived, and even the families had stopped calling. Everyone had moved on. Everyone except Bravo. Now retired from active duty, Bravo spent most of his days lounging on Braxton's porch, his once black muzzle now graying, but his eyes still sharp. Every time a stranger passed, Bravo sat upright. Every time Braxton laced up his boots, Bravo stood at the door. That kind of loyalty doesn't retire. So when Bravo began growling one Saturday afternoon at the town's annual fall harvest fair, Braxton didn't hesitate. The old dog was staring dead-on at a woman across the square. She wasn't doing anything suspicious. Just handing out pamphlets by the county health booth, dressed in jeans and a navy windbreaker. But Bravo wouldn't stop growling, not aggressive, but alert. Focused. Familiar. Braxton narrowed his eyes. The woman looked mid-30s. Hair pulled into a loose ponytail. Glasses. Something about the shape of her face tugged at the edge of a memory. Then he saw it. A thin, pale scar on her left wrist, exactly where Madison Hale had one from a fall during a childhood camping trip. She caught Braxton staring. For a second, her entire body froze. Her lips parted like she might speak, but then she turned and walked away. Not rushed. Not panicked. Just, gone. By the time Braxton reached the booth, she'd already disappeared into the crowd. He searched the area with Bravo at his side, but there was no sign of her. Just a pamphlet, fluttering in the wind, stuck between two hay bales. He picked it up. It read, "Supporting survivors of exploitation, healing starts here." 2 days later, a letter arrived at the Hollow Creek Police Department. No return address. Just 6 words handwritten on the envelope. For Officer Braxton, private and urgent. Inside was a single page. Thank you for never giving up. Tell my parents I'm safe. I can't come home yet, but I'm alive. Please, stop looking. Some doors must stay closed. With gratitude, M. Braxton folded the letter slowly. He didn't cry. He didn't speak. He just placed it in the folder he had kept open for years, the one labeled Hale and Carter case. It was the first real confirmation. Madison was alive. Weeks passed. Fall turned to winter. And then, one December evening, the department phone rang just past midnight. Braxton was off duty but still in uniform, nursing a lukewarm coffee and listening to Bravo snore at his feet. The voice on the other end was soft. Female. And trembling. Is this Officer Hayes? He sat up straighter. Yes, speaking. I'm sorry to call so late. You don't know me, but, my name's Carmen Winters. I'm a school counselor in Minnesota. I think you met me at a fair last month, or at least, I think your dog did. His chest tightened. Go on. She took a deep breath. I'm not ready to talk about everything. But I read the letters. I saw what her mother wrote in the papers. And I want you to know she's okay. She's not in danger anymore. She's helping kids now, like someone once helped her. Braxton's voice caught. Is she, Madison? Silence. Then, that name doesn't exist anymore. But, yes. And she's safe. He could barely breathe. Thank you for telling me. She whispered, tell them she's proud of them. For never giving up. And for letting her be who she is now. Then she hung up. Braxton stared at the phone for a long time, then looked down at Bravo, who had stirred and was watching him quietly. You did it, boy, he murmured. You brought her home, in the only way she could return. 6 months later, a package arrived. No name. No address. Just a padded envelope with a postmark from Des Moines, Iowa. Inside was a photograph. A woman stood in front of a modest brick school, surrounded by smiling kids. Her hair was longer now. She wore different glasses. But the smile? Braxton would have known it anywhere. On the back was written. This is my life now. Thank you for saving it. C.W. Bravo licked Braxton's hand as he held the photo. For the first time in years, he let himself smile. That fall, Braxton organized the first Hollow Creek Youth Awareness Day, an educational outreach event about online safety, travel risks, and recognizing exploitation. He worked with state officials, school counselors, and survivor organizations. Quietly, he knew one of them had already spoken at a similar event in another town. Maybe she'd speak here one day, too. But for now, he honored her, and Sophie, and every other missing child, with action, not headlines. In the end, not all stories get perfect closure. Sophie Carter was never found. But rumor had it that a woman in Austin, Texas, with 2 young kids and a quiet life, once wrote a letter that said, I'm okay. And my kids carry the strength of the man who raised me. No name. No proof. But enough. On Bravo's final day in the field, Braxton let him walk the old cornfield trail one last time. The place where it all began. The wind had changed, the air smelled of fresh-cut hay and freedom. The old K9 stopped near the burned stump. He sniffed the ground. Then sat. No barking. No growling. Just peace. Thank you for following this journey with us. Folded hands. We hope Bravo's story reminded you that heroes don't always wear badges, and sometimes, they walk on 4 legs. If you had the chance to send one message to someone who disappeared, what would you say? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this story if it touched your heart. There's always more to uncover.